Now, joining us from Tripoli, Libya, under months and months of bombardment, British attack helicopters now being dispatched, U.S. and British forces advising admitted Taliban and Al-Qaeda in the fight against Muammar Gaddafi. The attempted assassinations are ongoing, and they're not even calling them assassinations, even though they're admitted. The Russians are now calling for an immediate ceasefire in Libya, saying this is an attack, a humanitarian disaster. They now admit the rest of the Arab Springs are being funded by the CIA. That's now admitted. Google and others in Europe have just been praised for it. Former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney has been demonized because she has a lot of courage. She spoke up against DynCorp and Halliburton child kidnapping rings and got Rumsfeld to admit it. She fought against forced inoculations. She fought against the Patriot Act. She has a lot of courage, and she's a member of the Green Party. She's been awarded the Peace Through Conscience Award from the Munich American Peace Committee. And yesterday she appeared on state-run Libyan TV, and that's caused quite a hubbub here domestically because she has the courage to go to that. We were talking to her yesterday on the phone with bombs going off in the background. Congresswoman, we appreciate you joining us.
Alex, it's been too long. I have wanted to come on your show for so long, but it's quite, whenever we get together, it's wonderful. So thank you so much for having me on. And, it's dark here now, and after the meeting of President and Cameron, we expect that there will be intense bombing tonight. We don't know that, but we expect that that's what is in store for us. More humanitarian intervention from NATO.
And Obama told Cameron, no let-up on Gaddafi. Now, have you talked to Gaddafi? What have you witnessed? What are you seeing? We're seeing the images of civilian dead, burning buildings, and our media tells us 1984 style, this is not an assault, this is not an attack, this is humanitarian. They're sinking, 8 ships last week in the harbor, bombs going off everywhere, more bombs yesterday. What are you witnessing?
They're lying. The American people are being lied to, not only by the media, by their leaders. And this is becoming a humanitarian disaster. For example, I have an Italian woman here who did everything she could to purchase medicines because they want to purchase medicines. And the government of Italy put a stop on the purchase by the Libyans of medicine for their people.
And that's a violation of the Geneva Convention. That is a serious war crime.
That's right. And then we have the situation with fuel for civilian use. They have effectively blockaded the harbor so that deliveries of benzene to fuel the cars is not permitted. And this is affecting the civilian population. So you will see what looks like a traffic jam. And actually, it's cars lined up, hundreds of cars lined up at the service station.
So they have Libya under siege. Tell us what it's like on the ground. Tell us what you're witnessing. Tell us what you said on Libyan television.
Well, basically, now here's the interesting thing, because these people, the Libyans, are undeterred. They seem to be unafraid. I was with a group of women. I wrote in the piece that I did, A Feast of Blood, about a woman whose mother is in Benghazi. And she can't, it's sort of like the situation with Hurricane Katrina. She can't get back to Benghazi because, Benghazi is a stronghold of the rebels. Now, the interesting thing, what I've been told today, I haven't checked it out yet, but that there is sort of active Israeli intervention in Benghazi, and that the Israelis are on the ground under contract, probably being paid to organize the NATO alliance that consists of Libyans, but it's my understanding that these so-called rebels are not just Libyans. They are people from all over the region. These are not even mainly Libyans. These are Egyptians and Algerians and...
It's the CIA secret Al-Qaeda brigades from the 1980s. That's now been admitted.
Yes.
And there's U.S. and British commandos have been there since before it started. That's now confirmed. This is absolutely incredible. Why did you decide to go to Libya, former Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney?
Well, I guess, I'm accustomed to going into conflict zones, and I just could not accept that this was being done in my name. And, there comes a point when you're fed up, you're tired, and you want to do as much as you can possibly do. And, of course, I come from the Catholic tradition that instructs us that we have an obligation, we have a responsibility to do as much as we are gifted to do. And so being here was my way of making a contribution. And sure enough, the fact that I was here when the most intense bombardment of Tripoli, this is Tripoli. I mean, can you imagine? I'm not talking about, out in the farmland where you're just despoiling the agricultural land. I'm talking about Tripoli, a metropolitan area of 2 million people, and they're being hit with bombs. I mean, it is absolutely incredible.
And it's called humanitarian.
What that has to do with any kind of humanitarian intervention is beyond me. This is what we know the United States to be very good at, and particularly on the African continent. We've seen it over and over and over again. Individuals of wealth and resource who are able to pull the levers on U.S. military and diplomatic policy are able to arm a small group of people, give them the financial wherewithal to wreak havoc and terror on a population, and then all of a sudden, presto, abracadabra, you've got what is called in the media a civil war. Well, it's not a civil war. It's a group of people who've decided that they want something that particular area has. For example, in Sierra Leone, it was diamonds. And when the British sand line mercenaries went into the home of Foday Sanko, what did they find there? A letter from Maurice Templesman proposing to do business. So this is the kind of thing that motivates U.S. policy. And I am certain that at the end of an investigation, were we to have one, we would find that there are certain individuals involved in this, and they are able to dictate to the president, to Cameron, to Sarkozy, to all of the NATO allies. They are able to dictate them going to war.
Well, we know what it's about.
This is about.
The Al-Qaeda rebels have already set up their own bank. They've already set up their own oil company. And it's about handing over the trillions in oil, also the water. Say what you want about Muammar Gaddafi. He's built up an infrastructure. He's actually delivered to the people the government spoils. And it's become a major hub for all of Africa. And he's been developing Africa and moving towards an African currency and a loan program. He's got hundreds of billions in gold and other resources. And you can say what you want about Gaddafi, but bottom line, this is a takeover. You know, how can the neocon media call you a traitor for being over there reporting the truth when it's admitted that what Gaddafi said 3 months ago is true, that the main force, this is now in the Wall Street Journal and LA Times, that is running all this is Al-Qaeda. And in fact, the Al-Qaeda commander under CIA payroll admits that he killed U.S. soldiers or commanded groups in Iraq. So you're against people that killed U.S. soldiers, and so you're bad. Cynthia, I mean, what's wrong? Just join Al-Qaeda, and the neocons are going to say you're great.
Well, that's exactly the point, because we remember what Robin Cook, the now deceased foreign minister of the United Kingdom, had to say about Al-Qaeda. He just said it was the CIA's Rolodex. So it is.
And he died a week later. That killed him real fast.
And they got rid of him. Yeah. So I mean, it's not the situation that the United States is allied with Al-Qaeda is not unusual. What is unusual is that they actually admit it, because what they have been saying to the American people and to the world is that Al-Qaeda is the bad guy, and that's who we've got to get. But I will never forget the op-ed that was written by Robin Cook. And so I advise everybody, I know you talk about this, and you're one of the rare truth tellers, and so you will remember this, but the fact that we had someone of Robin Cook's stature and position to tell us the truth about exactly what Al-Qaeda was is very important and something not to be forgotten.
I agree, and the word was he was going to come out and document that they'd murdered Dr. David Kelly. It's now coming out they murdered Diana. That's big news, and they couldn't allow him with that high level, like number 2 or 3 in the British government. They killed him so fast it made everybody's head spin. Now, Congresswoman, this is so important. What is the mood of the Libyans under these love bombs that are killing so many, these humanitarian kinetic attacks? And the word of the attack helicopters coming, more weapons. I don't bring this up because you're black. It's in the news. We reported it over a month ago that Gaddafi's been allied with just a coalition, and the tribes he's with are not anti-black African, and it's admitted that they're lining up blacks and killing them in the areas held by Al-Qaeda. What's the word on that, on the genocide against black Africans in Libya?
Well, here's another thing that is absolutely astounding, and that is this whole idea that black people shouldn't be in Africa, which is something that was promulgated by the American press. When I presume is that when they landed and they saw black people all over Libya, they were shocked. Well, the fact of the matter is that you've got a sizable chunk of black people in Libya because you've got black people all over Africa. It's horrible, and it's insulting to the Libyans themselves. And so now they have their own citizens who are being killed, beheaded. In fact, I'm having the video of this. I think there may be some footage of this on the internet already, but I am getting it uploaded now so that I can disseminate it through my own network of the family members of those Libyans who were lynched. They've gone to lynching and beheadings of the blacks, and this is being done by the NATO allies. Because
it's known that blacks, on average, are supportive of Gaddafi because he doesn't lynch them and chop their heads off.
Well, look, Alex, in Libya, guess what? People don't have to go through the insurance company in order to get to see their doctor. They have free health care over here. They don't have to go through a bank in order to have a relationship with their professor at a university because they have free education over here, all the way up through the PhD level. You go to school and you don't pay attention.
No, I've studied Libya. I don't even agree with socialism because it only works if you have a benevolent dictator, and I'm not saying he's that, but Gaddafi does take most of the money and actually use it. You've been there many times. I've seen the video, the reports. It is a shining jewel of development, and they want that giant canal he's built, that huge airport they built for Afri-Con to launch attacks all over Africa. I mean, really, Libya is the beachhead to really take over Africa. Is that the word there?
That's right. And in addition to that, you have the European countries were trying to have some Mediterranean alliance. And what they proposed was that the African countries on the Mediterranean littoral be joined in a economic arrangement with all of Europe. And Gaddafi was the one who said, no, that's not fair. If it's all of Europe, then it ought to be all of Africa. And so he put a stop to that particular plan. And so that is in limbo now. But, of course, you know, nothing would be in limbo if you got those puppets, the NATO allies, in control and recognized as a legitimate government of Libya.
Cynthia,
So
incredible. Cynthia, incredible. What are the bombardments like? What are you witnessing? What is the feeling of the Libyan people that you've met with?
Well, I've had so many Libyans, you know, it's kind of obvious that I'm an American, and once I open my mouth. And so they asked me, why? Why are the Americans doing this? Because, you know, Gaddafi made many concessions and invited the American companies in. I mean, you know...
He made a deal. He gave up the weapons. He kissed their rump. I mean, he did everything. That's
right. And the American companies are here. They're here in full force. And even that wasn't good enough. Now, there's another thing that I'll be writing a little bit more about, and that's supposed to be the geological survey that the Libyan government had just to ascertain exactly what their resources were and the extent of whatever the mineral reserves were that they had. And apparently it came back that Libya had far more oil resources than they previously thought.
Yeah, the word is instead of 1 trillion, 5 trillion, the oil worth almost as much as all the rest of the oil that's been discovered in Africa from the numbers I've seen, and one of the biggest areas with deep aquifers of water. Now, we've only got about 7-8 minutes left with Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney, former Congresswoman. What are the best websites for people to read your reports of what's really happening in Libya and other key points that you'd like to add for the international media that is undoubtedly going to pick up on this interview today?
Well, I presume that people could go to my Facebook page or Twitter, and they can get the dispatches that I send out. I'm in the process of preparing one now about how the Gaddafi family members were murdered. I went and visited that compound, and that is amazing. It's not even a compound; it's a house in a residential neighborhood. I mean,
and that's illegal too. I mean, they're bombing houses. They're trying to kill him and his family, and then telling the public, "Oh, we're not doing that."
I know. It is just patent lies. Now, you asked about what it's like to be here. I mean, you know, it's like every time I'm in a hotel room and every time the air conditioner comes on, you know, I kind of jump because I know it's dark now and the bombardment's going to start. And so any kind of pop or, you know, I've only been through it, 3 or 4 nights now? And can you imagine what our soldiers are like when they come back with post-traumatic stress syndrome, when they go through it night after night for month after month, for year after year. This is, and the effect on the children and on average ordinary civilians who are in no way, we don't even know what the NATO design is other than to kill Gaddafi and to take over the country.
And we know that the folks on the east, a lot of them, want to slaughter the folks on the west, old tribal differences, and I'm sure just like the UN has helped carry out massacres in Rwanda and other areas, they can't wait to help out there. They're going to help folks with this humanitarian mass murder. Now, what do you make of the Russians coming out and saying this is not humanitarian? They're going to try to go to the UN and put a veto in. What do you expect to happen there? Pakistan now says the U.S. is getting ready to start a war with them. The Chinese are saying they're ready to go toe-to-toe. I mean, it looks like we're moving towards World War III, all with the left cover of Obama up there.
Well, of course, that's why he was put in office to start with, you know. So, yes, I'm not surprised that all of this would be happening under President Obama's watch. And then, of course, we still have the Cold Warriors who believe that Russia and China are the ultimate and penultimate enemies of the United States. And so rather than seeing the world as a global community, they see the world as a collection of rivalries that need to be overcome. And so for one, if the Russians or the Chinese are ready to put an end to what is happening here in Libya, I would say thank you very much for helping bring some sanity back into
I'll say this.
Policy.
I would be against the Russians when they were taking over Eastern Europe, and I'm against that. I was for the Berlin Wall falling. I don't like any tyrants. We have become that. You don't see Russia and China blowing countries up everywhere.
No, and in fact, if you look at what the Chinese have done, I've seen the tangible results of what the Chinese have provided in terms of development assistance around the African continent.
Well, that's the word that Afri-Con's going in, and the Pentagon admits this, to block the Chinese developing Africa.
Yes, that's right. And the worst thing, of course, you know, from the whole idea about what's a threat, the threat only can be carried out if there is the means by which to do so. And as long as you keep people poor and deprived, then they do not have the ability to challenge you, whether it's in areas of finance or is in education or science or whatever, then you can remain top dog.
Exactly. Shifting gears, because we're almost out of time. We're going to a 1-minute break. If you can stay 5 more, fine, but I don't know yet. Congresswoman, what do you make? I know you're over in Libya, bravely under bombardment, so you probably don't know, but the media is trying to demonize you. How dare you go report what's happening? You know, how dare you go give another view on things? What do you make of the demonization of yourself for being over there?
Alex, you know what it's like. I mean, you know, I'm here with Washington Times, Los Angeles Times, and the Washington Post, Los Angeles Times, and the New York Times reporters. And the first thing that came out of their mouth to me was, "You're so courageous to be here." But, you know, they would never print it. And so, at the end of the day, it goes with the territory of telling the truth.
That's right. Our job's easy. We just tell the truth, but few have the courage you have. Let me talk to you during this 1-minute break, see if you can stay. If not, Congresswoman, briefly, what do you make of the power grab of the TSA?
Well, you know, this is absolutely outrageous that we are forced to literally take our clothes off in order to get on a plane. And now Chuck Schumer tells us that we have to take our clothes off or be groped by strangers at bus stations and other areas of, you know, for transportation. So this is ridiculous. This is not America anymore. And that's what I say, you know, when our members of Congress are so removed from the issues and the needs of average, ordinary American citizens. We need change in a real way. That's what people thought they were voting for by when they voted for President Obama. And now I think this ought to be a lesson for everyone that you cannot get the kind of substantive policy change that we need by merely going to the polls and voting for the same people.
I haven't seen the full Libya report, but is it true that you've now gone public with the fact that AIPAC, which is basically Israeli intelligence, came to you and said, we'll get behind you if you shift and basically bow down and sign a pledge to be a servant of Israel?
Yes. I'm really surprised about this getting traction so late, because this was actually the problem that I had when I ran for the first time in Congress in 1992. A fax came over my fax machine from AIPAC, and it was a pledge, and it had like 7 points on it. And one of those points was Jerusalem's the capital city. The other one was military superiority of Israel. The other one was continued economic assistance at, you know, whatever levels Israel requests. And there were 2 other points. I can't remember them. And I refused to sign the pledge. I said, well, you know, I haven't even gotten elected yet. Why don't you give me an opportunity to get into the office, let me study the issues, and then I'll see where our positions can coincide. That wasn't good enough for them. They wanted me to sign a pledge to all of those points and more before I even got into office. And then what happened is that when I refused to sign the pledge, then that's when I discovered that whether it's an environmental organization, a women's organization, a peace organization, didn't matter. Eventually, I got the question, did you sign the pledge? And since I had to answer the question as a no, then I didn't get any money.
So it's across the board, unbelievable, regardless of what your view is on Israel. This is a foreign country manipulating what's happening inside our nation. It's all part of globalist domination. In closing, you're there. How long will you be in Libya? And how do you see this ending?
Well, actually, I am about to leave so that I can prepare for a delegation, and hopefully we will be departing the USA very soon, like in the next few days, and I will have a delegation of about 15 to 20 people. So if there's anyone who is interested in going, Alex, you might want to come over here with me on one of the delegations. I would be more than happy to bring you.
I don't know if I have as much courage as you do now.
Yes, of course you
No,
do.
I know. I'd go. I'm pinned down here. I know Wayne Madsen's gone over there. Well, I would think about it. Folks can check out your Twitter, your MySpace. Just put Cynthia McKinney in, and it comes up.
And it'll come up.
You know, any way you slice it, ma'am, you've got a lot of courage, and you're a straight shooter, and that's why I admire you, and you're just an amazing lady, and I wish more men in this country were like you, and we wouldn't be going into slavery under this globalist tyranny. But thank you so much for spending time with us today.
Thank you, Alex, for having me.
Let me say bye to you as we go to break here.